afternoon and happy Friday, everyone. Welcome to Stock Market Today. It's Alyssa Corum here, and I am joined by Ed Carson. We're going to break down the action for the major indexes, not only today, but this week, and make sense of what happened and maybe give you some tips to how to prepare for the week ahead. We're also going to take a look at a couple of interesting stocks, including Novocure and Intuitive Surgical. Hey, Ed, happy Friday. Why don't you go ahead and kick things off? We're going to take a look at that candlestick chart of the Nasdaq. We closed higher today, near session highs. The Nasdaq up about 0.7% to cap off a string of gains this week.
Yeah, a really strong week to end another strong week. We'll take a look at a weekly chart soon. But, all the major indexes hit new highs today, as well as the Russell 2000. So really broad-based strength, which is a positive. We can take a look at the Webby's RSI, which we haven't looked at for a while, but that is sort of measuring how the low of the day versus the 21-day. How close is it? How far away is it? And we're still not at elevated on two extreme levels. I mean, I think what we had here is, when you get up to over 4%, then you might get started a little bit worried about it. But so far, we're not too far from the 21-day or 50-day line, but we have had two big, strong weeks.
That's right. And I think now maybe the question is this sustainable? Because we've seen a number of breakouts, a lot of them working, stocks have been going on runs. So where are we now in this uptrend with us being back to that middle of the regression line? As you can see here also on the weekly chart, up, another strong week. Where are we in the uptrend?
I mean, I think everything looks really good right now. I mean, there is some froth in certain sectors. We're not too extended from the 10-week line. I think it was like 6.5%, somewhere in there, 6.5%, 7%. Just getting up there. As long as we don't get too much higher than that, we're fine. But we can't have these kind of weeks without probably risking some pullbacks. We saw that even in that powerful April to September rally, when we started getting up to 10%, then it was like, well, wait a second, it looks like we're going to have to take a break for a few weeks. That doesn't mean a big deal. It could just be a short-term pause. If we had a pause like this, right after the election, we had that mammoth week, and then these 2 weeks came in, really just settled down. Actually ended up being a 3 weeks tight for the composite. It was a really nice break and set the stage for these big moves. But with the bullish sentiment we've got, which is sort of at the highest levels in like almost 3 years, some of the froth maybe in some of the software and IPO names, those are all reasons if we keep going at this kind of pace, we're probably going to have to take a reversal at some point.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily mean you need to get defensive right now, but just be aware of where we are and what could happen and how that could impact your portfolio. And now let's pivot to the S&P 500 over on MarketSmith and take a look at that. Ed, you mentioned that all of the indexes hit highs this week. So same thing for the S&P 500, which gained about 0.9% on Friday, some 1.6% for the week. So now we are solidly in new high territory for the S&P.
Yeah, and again, that breadth is really positive. It's not just a handful of stocks that is doing it. In fact, the big cap techs, other than Apple, really didn't do necessarily a whole lot, and they haven't been doing a whole lot in the last several weeks. So a lot of breadth, so that is a positive. And so there's definitely a lot to like about this market.
All right, and now let's take a look at some individual stocks. Novocure, ticker NVCR. Ed, this has been a little bit of a tricky one. Shook some investors out the other week, but that stock quickly reversed higher after shaking out some of those weaker shareholders. The stock now back at new highs, finishing today up over 9%. So a pretty picture perfect breakout here. So for those who maybe did get shaken out, others also may have opted to only sell half and keep half. What do you make of the breakout today here for Novocure?
Yeah, really strong. This was our IBD stock of the day, and it was a recent New America. It's really interesting technology that they do. A lot of studies to come out in the next couple of years. So that's where a lot of the optimism is, that they'll be able to expand their products, for more cancers. It broke out above here. You could argue right around here, or at this buy point here. From this buy point, it's still just in range. Really strong action, nice volume today. Yeah, as you said, picture perfect. Yeah, this was really positive. This week was really odd. I mean, this looked terrible. I mean, it looked just terrible. It had broken above some early entries. It was looking great, and then just sold off on what seemed to be no news.
Yeah.
But even though it sold off really hard, this is why we sometimes say, well, maybe you sell partially, but maybe you hold on to some of it, because if you look on a weekly chart, you hardly notice it. And, it's like, really, there was a big sell-off there? I mean, it was, but it actually turned out to be a support week. The stock didn't fall that much and closed above its 10-week line. So it would have been really hard. It would have been completely understandable if you said, if you were a new investor in this, to bail out, because you might have hit the 7 to 8% sell rule, and so you might have needed to get out. But it actually turned out to be a fairly positive week, and this week is very strong. Again, it's nice to see that breadth beyond the software, beyond the chips, into some medical technology as well. It's definitely one to be looking at for that reason as well.
Yeah, and elsewhere in the medical sector, we're keeping tabs on Intuitive Surgical, ticker ISRG, also with a strong week this week, gaining about 7% after pulling back to that 10-week line, or the 50-day line on the daily chart. This was another tricky one because it had that breakout from the cup with handle, then pretty quickly pulled back, not so violently in just a matter of days like Novocure, but it did kind of technically trigger, a bit of a sell signal there. What do you make of this action? Because Intuitive Surgical had a very strong move this week.
Yeah, very strong. There's a few things you could look at. I mean, it came down as much about as, I think it was 7.5%. So it's right in the middle of that 7 to 8% automatic sell rule. But it did find support at its 50-day line. So if you had held it, you could make that argument, because it never really broke that. So you could argue that this buy point is still valid, in which case this buy point works. You could have just argued that you could have bought it off the 50-day line. And, it's working on another consolidation, sort of base next to base. So this could offer, another entry. This is one, like Novocure, it's a little bit betting maybe on a post-coronavirus world. You can see how the results have been terrible, because people have been delaying surgeries. Hospitals are filled up, or people just don't want to go. I don't want to go to a hospital where I might get the coronavirus and have my body opened up for that situation. So that's hit it now, but I think people are betting that the good times will come back. You can see that in the earnings estimates, that you'll see a rebound. Now, we'll see how quickly does the vaccine come out, how quickly that turn around. But that's what people are hoping for. So again, strong action here, strong weekly action, just to show that, because, really, and again, probably aren't going to see that all the time, but really a nice bounce from the 10-week line, 6.6%. Record close for the daily and the week. So really good action there.
Yeah, speaking of the 10-week, it's, as you mentioned, 6.6% above that level, so still within 10% if you did want to size your position off of the 10-week line. That's just one strategy that we talk about in a little bit more detail on IBD Live. We were talking about both Novocure and Intuitive Surgical in real time this morning before Novocure got as extended as it did throughout the day, so just a little bit of a tidbit there. But now that we've analyzed these couple of stocks, Ed, and looked at the broader market, both on the daily charts and the weekly charts. Now let's talk about our weekend battle plan and what investors should be doing to prepare for the week ahead.
Well, I mean, Ali, as always like to say, you should analyze your stocks, but I think, again, you really should be analyzing your winners for a couple of reasons. One, I mean, some may be getting extended. And you also want to make sure, am I getting too exposed to the market or to a particular sector? If you bought a number of these software IPOs or things that went up 20%, you might have had a position that, you may have felt, I'm comfortable with this exposure, but now because they've done so well, which is not a bad thing, but now a higher percentage of your portfolio is in that sector. And, all you have to do look at is these China EV stocks. I think NIO, Li Auto, and XPeng, they all fell 20% this week. I mean, they may hot. So if you're in one of these high flying sectors and you've got a lot of exposure to that, you could see that coming back. So you want to be diversified in your leadership. So that's definitely something to be looking at. And I just say, look, the last several weeks, I think have been pretty easy to make money. I mean, it's like, so that might be, if you start thinking, hey, this is easy, that might be a sign, wait a second, maybe it won't be so easy. The market usually brings your ego into back to earth.
And contrary to popular belief, stocks don't always go up. Nothing goes straight up forever. So it's important to look at those individual stocks and know where your line in the sand is. If you're up big, know where you want to take profits, or know the level that you're comfortable with it coming off of those highs, or maybe it's a round number that you're looking at, or a recent area of support, or even a moving average. Make sure you take that into account, like you said, because when the money is easy, it's a different psychological thing that happens, and you want to make sure you're not giving back all of those hard-earned gains.
That's right.
All right, everyone. Well, thanks so much for watching. And as always, this technical analysis of the market is to be used as a guide. We're not making any predictions here, of course, but the more informed we are of the market technicals and the overall market action and what's happening with the leadership underneath, the more informed decisions that we can make. But it's always important to remain flexible. And with that, once again, thanks for watching. We'll see you back here on Monday.